Here are 3 reasons why Viddal Riley will become a world champion. Many of us found out about Viddal Riley through him being a staple figure in the influencer scene, notably being the first coach of KSI, who is the biggest draw in the influencer scene, and also a few other people in the very first days of influencer boxing, when KSI first fought Joe Weller back in 2017. Still being a part of KSI's camp in his first fight against Logan Paul, and being a vital figure in KSI winning his first fight against Logan Paul in 2019. And how KSI and Viddal found out about each other was by pure chance, with Gib and Viddal just happening to be in the same gym at the same time, with Gib seeing Viddal do some shadow boxing and then approached him to be a personal trainer. Despite splitting ways with KSI in terms of being his head coach or being a part of his camp to pursue his own boxing career, he was still a relevant figure in the influencer boxing scene, posting content around influencer boxing events, giving his predictions on fights and breaking down his thoughts on past events. Doing this both on his main channel and also with Leon on Real and Wills, who happened to also be another significant member in KSI's initial first few camps, and is still currently working with Deji and Gib. So despite Viddal leaving off work directly as a coach, he's still very much a part of the boxing scene. Viddal Riley's current boxing record is 8-0, with 5 victories coming by way of knockout, making his pro debut in late 2018, being signed by Mayweather's promotional team, with many prominent boxing figures saying that Viddal Riley is likely to go on to be a world champion.
And I told KSI, I said, we can get your boy some work. So Viddal went in there with him, and he iced him in the first or second round. And Jeff and I said, damn, this guy's the real deal.
And the first reason why I think that Viddal Riley will become a world champion is due to his strong amateur background. Generally speaking, most fighters that have had a decent amateur career tend to go on and do really well in their pro careers. A perfect example would be Vasily Lomachenko, having almost 400 wins in his amateur career, totaling an astonishing record, having 396 amateur wins with only 1 defeat. Also during his amateur career went on to get 2 gold medals. So when Lomachenko went on to turn pro, it's no surprise that he went on to win a world title in his 3rd professional fight against Gary Russell Jr., which is an absolutely astonishing feat. So having a decent amateur background translates incredibly well to becoming a good professional boxer. And Viddal Riley has a decent amateur background, having over 40 wins and multiple national championships. And this point leads seamlessly into the second reason why Viddal Riley will be a world champion. And that's because Viddal Riley has already beaten people that are contending for world titles back in his amateur career. Recently, Chris Billam Smith just beat Lawrence Okolie to become the Cruiserweight WBO champion. And Billam, back in the amateur scene, already lost to Viddal Riley. And that isn't the only notable name on his amateur record. Going against Daniel Dubois in his amateur days, who has now made a name for himself in the heavyweight division, and beating him. So when Viddal Riley gets a bit more experience in his pro career, there really isn't any reason for Viddal not to be up there with some of these people in his own division. And this next point, I don't know whether to count it as its own individual point on why Viddal Riley is going to be a world champion. And that is, or how do I say this in a nice way? The current state of the cruiserweight division is well.
Hear me and hear me good, nigga. I'm here to double down. That shit is a 2-pack of ass. The fuck are you talking about? That shit stinks.
Isn't the most prominent division in the sport of boxing currently. Now again, it's probably still obviously really difficult to get a world title in any weight division. And me sitting here just after finishing a burger, I'm not the one that has to fight for a world title. So me calling it easy doesn't take from the actual difficulty it takes to actually get a world title. When you look at other divisions, let's say the lightweight division for example, with some crazy fighters coming out there like Keyshawn Davis, Frank Martin, Sugar Shakur Stevenson, Lomachenko, Devin Haney, Tank Davis. And when I compare it to the cruiserweight division, it doesn't really have that same oomph behind it. Like, I watch a decent amount of boxing and I probably couldn't even name 5 cruiserweights. There's Lawrence Okolie, there's Billam Smith that I mentioned earlier, I think Badu Jack recently moved up to get a world title, but I really wouldn't consider him to be a true cruiserweight. And it goes to show he's in his last stages of his boxing career and moved up a division, and on his first fight was able to win a world title. And again, I don't think there's a link between how popular a weight class is and how hard it is to get a world title in those weight classes. And the last reason that I think Viddal Riley wins a world title is a bit difficult to pinpoint. Personally, I think something that a lot of people can appreciate in combat sports is that there's an intangible side of things. Things like heart, a person's desire to be great, work ethic, and we already know how far willpower alone can take a person that doesn't have much natural ability. And I think this point is probably the hardest point to convince someone about because it really just kind of boils down to vibes at the end of the day. There's a composure to his personality on camera that you don't really see in a lot of people. For interviews to some of his press conferences that he's done, there's an air of confidence that he has that I'm sure plays a significant factor and translates to how he performs when he's fighting. And that's why I think Viddal Riley will become a world champion.